Kenya, the land of the Maasai Mara, is burning, not with wildfires but with the flames of dissent. The Finance Bill 2024 has ignited widespread protests. From Nairobi to rural heartlands, Kenyans, especially the youth, are protesting. They argue the bill exacerbates the high cost of living. The proposed tax hikes have become a lightning rod for discontent. A battle of wills between the government and a determined citizenry. At the forefront of these protests is a new generation of Kenyans, Gen Z. Born into a digital age, these young people are tech-savvy, globally connected, and acutely aware of their rights. They are not afraid to challenge the status quo, to question authority, and to demand better from their leaders. This generation, having witnessed the failures of past regimes, is hungry for change. They are done with the old ways of doing things, the corruption, the nepotism, and the empty promises. Gen Z is not just protesting against the finance bill, they are protesting against a system they believe is rigged against them. They are fighting for economic justice, for quality education, for affordable healthcare, and for a future where their voices matter. Unlike previous generations who might have been cowed by state intimidation, Gen Z is fearless. They understand the power of social media, of mobilizing online, and of garnering international attention. They are a force to be reckoned with, a generation that refuses to be silenced. In the hands of Kenya's Gen Z, the smartphone has become more than just a device for communication, it's a weapon for social change. Armed with Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook, they are bypassing traditional media outlets and taking their message directly to the world. Hashtags like #taxation without representation and #stifling our future have trended globally, shining a spotlight on the situation in Kenya. These digital warriors are adept at crafting shareable content, from hard-hitting infographics to emotionally charged videos. Live streams of protests, often captured on smartphones, provide real-time updates, breaking through government censorship and countering state-sponsored narratives. Social media platforms have become virtual town halls where young Kenyans organize demonstrations, share information, and strategize their next move. The government, used to controlling the narrative through traditional media, is struggling to keep up. Gen Z's digital fluency has created a new battleground, one where the old rules of engagement no longer apply. For decades, Kenyan politics has been dominated by ethnic allegiances and personality cults. Elections were often decided not on policy platforms, but on which tribe or powerful figurehead a candidate represented. Gen Z, however, is ushering in a new era of issue-based activism. Their outrage is not fueled by tribal loyalties, but by shared economic anxieties and a desire for good governance. The Finance Bill, with its far-reaching implications for all Kenyans, has become a unifying force, transcending traditional ethnic divides. This shift towards issue-based activism is a positive development for Kenyan democracy. It has the potential to move the country away from the divisive politics of the past and towards a more inclusive and equitable future. Young people are realizing that their struggles are interconnected, regardless of their tribe or background. They are demanding accountability from their leaders, not based on ethnic affiliations, but on their ability to deliver on promises of economic opportunity and social justice. This new wave of activism, if sustained, could reshape the political landscape of Kenya. Section 5. Holding power accountable. The impact of Gen Z protests. The Kenyan government, long accustomed to getting its way, is now facing a formidable opponent, its own youth. The protests, fueled by Gen Z's unwavering determination, are having a tangible impact. Government officials are being held accountable for their words and actions like never before. The pressure from the streets, amplified by social media, is forcing the government to engage in dialogue and consider concessions. The protests have also forced international organizations and foreign governments to take notice. The spotlight on Kenya's human rights record and shrinking democratic space has intensified. This external pressure adds another layer of accountability, making it more difficult for the government to ignore the demands of its people. While it's too early to declare victory, the protests have undoubtedly shifted the balance of power. They have shown that even in the face of a seemingly insurmountable adversary, a determined citizenry can make a difference. Section 6. The price of dissent. Misinformation and the risk of violence. While the protests have brought about positive changes, they have also come at a cost. The spread of misinformation, particularly on social media, has become a major concern. False narratives, often peddled by those seeking to discredit the protests or incite violence, can quickly go viral, leading to confusion and distrust. The government, instead of addressing the root causes of the protest, has often resorted to blaming fake news and foreign influence. The potential for violence is another worrying aspect. While the protests have been largely peaceful, there have been instances of clashes with the police, leading to injuries and arrests. The government's heavy-handed response, including the use of tear gas and water cannons, has only served to escalate tensions. There is a real danger that the protests could be hijacked by opportunistic individuals or groups with ulterior motives, leading to further violence and instability. Section 7. Navigating the Shadows, the Dark Side of Digital Activism. While Gen Z's digital fluency has been instrumental in amplifying their message, it has also exposed them to the dark side of the online world. Cyberbullying, online harassment, and doxing have become commonplace, particularly targeting female activists and those from marginalized communities. The government, too, has been accused of using sophisticated surveillance technologies to monitor and intimidate activists. The spread of misinformation, often amplified by bots and troll armies, can also derail genuine activism, creating divisions and sowing discord. The echo chambers of social media can reinforce existing biases and make it difficult to engage in constructive dialogue. It's crucial for young activists to be aware of these dangers and to develop strategies to mitigate them. Digital literacy, critical thinking skills, and a commitment to ethical online engagement are essential to navigating the complex and often treacherous digital landscape. Section 8. A double-edged sword, economic disruption and political awakening. The protests, while crucial for holding the government accountable, have also led to economic disruption. Businesses have been forced to close, transport networks disrupted, and daily life thrown into disarray. This has disproportionately impacted the informal sector, the backbone of the Kenyan economy, where many rely on daily wages for survival. The economic costs of the protests cannot be ignored, and they risk alienating some who might otherwise be sympathetic to the protesters' cause. However, the protests have also sparked a political awakening among many Kenyans who were previously disengaged. The sight of young people bravely confronting power has been inspiring. It has ignited conversations about governance, accountability, and the kind of future Kenyans want for their country. This renewed sense of civic engagement, if channeled effectively, could lead to greater participation in democratic processes and a more informed and active citizenry. Section 9. Generation United, the rise of youth participation in politics. The protests have highlighted the growing political clout of young people in Kenya. With a median age of just 19, Kenya has one of the youngest populations in the world. This demographic reality is forcing political leaders to pay attention to the concerns of young people. Gen Z's activism is translating into concrete political action. There is a surge in youth registering to vote, running for office, and engaging in political discourse. Political parties, once dominated by the older generation, are now actively courting young voters. They are realizing that ignoring the demands of this demographic bloc could cost them dearly at the ballot box. This increased youth participation in politics is a positive sign for Kenyan democracy. It injects fresh perspectives, challenges established norms, and holds the potential for a more inclusive and representative political system. Section 10. The path forward. Transparency, dialogue, and peaceful engagement. The protests in Kenya are at a crossroads. The government faces a choice to continue with its heavy-handed tactics, risking further escalation and instability, or to embrace dialogue and meaningful reforms. The path forward requires a commitment to transparency, accountability, and peaceful engagement from both sides. The government must address the legitimate concerns raised by the protesters, particularly regarding the high cost of living and the lack of economic opportunities. It's crucial to create spaces for open and honest dialogue, where grievances can be aired and solutions can be explored collaboratively. Civil society organizations, religious leaders, and respected elders can play a vital role in mediating between the government and the protesters, fostering trust and facilitating reconciliation. The international community, too, has a responsibility to support peaceful resolution efforts and to hold the Kenyan government accountable for upholding human rights and democratic principles. Section 11. A New Dawn for Kenya, the Legacy of Gen Z Protests. The Gen Z protests in Kenya are more than just about a controversial finance bill. They are a testament to the power of young people to shape their own destinies. They are a beacon of hope, not just for Kenya, but for Africa and the world. These protests are a reminder that the fight for social justice, economic equality, and good governance is a marathon, not a sprint. The spirit of resistance, the unwavering belief in a better tomorrow, that's what will ultimately prevail.